This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. We are here to celebrate the picking of Tetairoa McMillan as the 8th overall choice in the 2025 NFL Draft by the Carolina Panthers. Shane, the highest drafted Arizona offensive player of all time. Pretty darn cool for a guy that turned down a bigger school, in Oregon, to come to Arizona, and people wondered, will that hurt his draft stock? I would say the answer is a resounding no.
No. Talent always finds a way to shine through. I think we looked it up, or you looked it up specifically right before we started recording, and he's the highest offensive pick ever in Arizona history. You said Ricky Henley was taken 7th overall, so he went one pick higher, so he's the highest overall for Arizona, period. But yeah, great news for Arizona. It's completely justified, but I'm kind of surprised he went as high as he did because I think most mocks had him going in the teens, maybe a little bit later. Him going to the Cowboys was a really popular pick. I don't know if you saw how upset Micah Parsons was when he went 8th, which I enjoyed because number one, he went that high, and number two, he didn't go to the Cowboys. Seems like a no-brainer of a pick for Carolina. I know they got a lot of needs, but their leading receiver last year was Adam Thielen, who had just over 600 receiving yards and is about to turn 35. So great get for Bryce Young. I guess they had been practicing together, him and T-Mac, for a while out in L.A., so they know each other a bit. So it's just a matter of, is he going to have the same problem in Carolina in his rookie year as he did at Arizona last year, and being double and triple teamed with some of the other options or lack thereof. But no, very happy for T-Mac. Going to miss him, but and he does play I think they do play the Cardinals in Glendale. So Arizona fans who want to make the trip, or if you live up in the valley like we do, want to catch T-Mac in action, have a chance to do that. Not sure why everyone's calling him Tet. I'm not sure how that started. I guess I said I feel like no one's called him Tet until a couple days ago, and then Blair Willis said he's heard it for months, but like no one calls him that. It's been T-Mac or Tetairoa. But that aside, great day for him and for Arizona, and good publicity, and hopefully it won't be the last first round pick for a while, and because Mike Stoops was good at churning out NFL draft picks. Rob Gronkowski and Nick Foles and Marquise Flowers But it's that the well might be dried up for a little while, but hopefully that won't be the case.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that. How long do we think it's going to be? Just a guess. The next time Arizona has a first-round pick. 2 years in a row. We saw Jordan Morgan go to my Packers last year, and then obviously McMillan. I don't see anyone on the roster right now that looks like a first-round pick. And the way Arizona's recruiting, it doesn't look like there may be. So it could be a while, no?
Could be a while, yeah. And like I said, Mike Stoops did a good job of turning out some draft picks. Rich Rodriguez, not so much. I think largely because it's like his style was more focused on college than on the pro level. But Jed did that very well, and Arizona could have had 2 first-round picks. Jonas Savigny hasn't been picked yet. Hopefully he will be soon the next day. But I will predict it will be at least a couple of years. You never know with the transfer portal, and if someone has a breakout season, but it doesn't seem likely to happen again in the near future.
All right, so let's do a little trivia here off the top of your head. We saw that Jordan Morgan last year was Arizona's first round pick. Since who and when would you guess without looking?
I knew this at one time. That knowledge has since left my head. Gronk was the 2nd round pick, was he not?
Correct.
Was it? And it was before him, I believe.
It was. It was close.
It was close to him. Oh, are we Evan Britton?
Evan Britton was not. He was a 2nd round pick.
Was he second round pick?
Antoine Cason, 2008, 27th to the San Diego Chargers,
There you
was
go.
Arizona's first round pick. And then before that, 2000 trunk candidate, 31st to the St. Louis Rams.
That's right.
And we didn't see one before that. John Fina was 1992. So they
Yeah.
don't come around very often. We're very
No.
lucky that Arizona's had two in the last 2 years. For a school like Arizona, I mean, I think you're looking at the 2030s before Arizona has another player drafted in the first round.
Could be. Well, it's just hard to do too. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you have a guy who's first round worthy, it doesn't mean they're going to go in the first round.
Right.
I mean, look what happened with the Shadur Sanders. So you just never know.
So enjoy it while we can, but pretty cool to see Arizona football have back-to-back first-round picks. Jonas Avenaya likely to go in the second on Friday, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that next week. Now, we are going to talk more football tonight with Victor Yates, our buddy making his second appearance on Wildcat Country, the always entertaining Victor Yates. We'll talk about everything related to Arizona football, NIL, and more. But let's get into buy or sell, Shane. And number one, following spring practice, give me one word to describe how you feel about the state of Arizona football.
It's a word that I probably speak for a lot of Arizona fans, and the word I say maybe it even isn't technically a word, but I would go with meh.
I was just going to say the same thing. That was going to be the one word that I was going to say.
Okay. Well, I spoke for at least one other.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way to really avoid the reality at this point, Eric, that we are in a full rebuild again. After it looked like going into last year that might have been avoided. And I will still credit Brett Brennan immensely for keeping guys like T-Mac and Noah Fafita and so many guys on defense on board. And I do think the additions of Joe Salovey and Seth Dagey to the staff are important and will prove to be. Absolutely. I think the loss of Dwayne Aquina kind of soured things a bit. I think that was equally as important on the defensive side. And I think if nothing else, we've received a kind of a sobering reminder of where Arizona is in the college football pecking order, and it's just not very high, at least among power schools. When coaches do well, they're going to be poached away, whether it's a head coach or whether it's in the assistant coach. Seth Dagey does great things at Arizona and builds up the offense, and they're one of the most potent offenses in the country. Good chance a bigger school's going to come calling, and I don't know if Arizona's going to be able to fend them off. It's just the way it is, and when players shine now, they're going to be tempted by shinier things and more money at other programs. And I think Jed Fish, as much as I hate to say it, was uniquely positioned to combat that in a way where he could say, look, we may not have as much NIL money to give you with some of these other schools, but we can make sure we do everything we can to get you to the next level, because look at all the talent you're surrounded by and the people we're going to bring in to coach you up and talk to you. So I do think Brent Brennan, if he does end up turning things around at Arizona, is more likely to stay longer term than most coaches would be, and partly because of his ties to university. But yeah, the enthusiasm we felt after that 10-win season, and then sort of refelt after Brennan was hired and was able to retain so many top guys, it's all gone, unfortunately. And it sort of feels like we're back to square one following Kevin Sumlin's departure. We're kind of back to where we were. Not quite that bad, but not that far off. And maybe that's not fair. And maybe Arizona will be better than expected. But right now, that just seems to be the vibe for me.
I don't want to. I'll give you another word. Apathetic. Still. I'm the Dagey hire is what intrigues me the most, but I don't necessarily trust in Brent Brennan's recruiting yet.
Yeah.
And one thing that Jed Fish brought, for better or for worse, he brought in some star power. I mean, Arizona had excitement when they brought in Tetairoa McMillan. That was the biggest recruit Arizona's had in a long time, and we probably won't see that for quite a while, especially in this NIL era. Unless a big donor comes down the pike for the Wildcats. So, without who's the star on this team? Noah Fafita's a big name, sure. Genesis Smith for us, but
maybe Dalton Johnson.
Maybe Dalton Johnson. I mean,
yeah.
But the star power isn't there.
Yeah.
So the apathy, all I can think about is leaving at halftime against ASU.
Yeah.
And
that was the last time you were there, right?
Right. And I probably won't be there in the first game of the year against Hawaii. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. Just depending. Yeah. But, I can't get it out of my head. And I hope that Dagey is the guy that kind of, brings the enthusiasm back with a fun offense. But until proven otherwise, I'm still soured on last year after coming off such a good season.
And not to belabor the point and depress people even more, but you go back to star power. You think about, Bill Belichick being on campus wearing an Arizona hat. You think about we had Steve Spurrier on our show because he was going to go and talk to the players when Jed Fish was there. Um, he had unlimited resources, and Jed rebuilt bridges to alumni as well and utilized them in a way that the coaches hadn't in a long time. And I think Brent will be good at that as well, but there's just no replacing those kinds of connections, and especially in the NIL/transfer portal world. So I will say Brett Brennan, I feel like it's kind of a cliche to call him a relationships guy, but that's what he is. He is great at building relationships with players. And I think that pre-NIL, that would have gone a longer way. I think post NIL, it's going to be more, you got to prove it on the field first. That's kind of the paradox. Well, you got to win first for me to come, but in order for us to win, you got to come. So he's got his work cut out for him, but I expect Arizona to be a bit better than most people think they're going to be, but my hopes are definitely a lot lower than they were going into the last season.
Yeah, and that's the problem is there's just the apathy, the meh. I mean, we're along the same lines there. Number two, Shane, it's kind of depressing, and I touched on this. It's kind of depressing that Arizona likely won't get anywhere near the impact recruits under Brennan as they did under Jed Fish. Can you get past that? Or are you buying this and just saying, yeah, this is just kind of depletes my enthusiasm for the program?
Yeah, yeah, and we've already touched on it a bit, but and certainly NIL plays a role. But beyond that, the Jed's coaching ties, he could say if you want to get better and come and play in the NFL, come to Arizona, and that worked for him. Now it's not impossible for Brett Brennan's staff to do the same to a certain extent. I think Joe Salavela, he's got a track record. Seth Dagey is the definition of a young up and coming coordinator. I think they'll have some recruiting success, but I think the proof is going to have to come more on the field first, which is how it usually works if you're not in a position like Jed was in. And if you're a potential recruit and say, look, Arizona brought all that talent back and they went from 10 wins to 4 wins. And that's the track record as of now. Brent and his staff can talk until they're blue in the face about building a culture and coming to be a part of something special. But it was a 6-game drop off with a lot of the same talent, and they're going to have to. I'm glad they made the coaching changes they have. Hopefully, I think strength and conditioning was a big issue last year, and hopefully they've addressed that. I think that's as big an issue as anything. But yeah, the recruiting, if you're expecting top 30, top 20 recruiting classes, I don't think that's realistic. I think you're going to, best case scenario, if Brent starts winning, I think you're looking at maybe top 40, top 50, and you hope to get some diamonds in the rough in the transfer portal.
I mean, listen, Rich Rod did it, found Scooby Wright, who ended up being the best defensive player in the country.
His OKGs, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kadeem Carey came in here and was one of the best offensive players in the country. So not saying Arizona's not going to have superstars. I mean, Camp Scadaboo was for ASU was not, it was
came from Sacramento State, I believe.
Right. I mean, he was an unheralded transfer that just got really, really good. So you don't know, somebody could break out on Arizona's roster and be incredible. But right now, on paper, we don't know who that is. And that's kind of the depressing part. Speaking of, and I don't mean to belabor the point of, depressing, but it's kind of, is it unsettling to you, Shane, that Arizona basketball hasn't really done anything yet? I mean, they kept their current players. Yeah. They brought in Evan Nelson, I guess, from Harvard. They brought in Koa Pete and Braden Burries. Are you unsettled? Buy if you're unsettled, or sell if you think this is the most ludicrous topic of all time, considering what Arizona's brought in.
I would say it's somewhere in between. I'm not. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to Carter Bryant's decision, and we're going to have to wait it out, and that's just the way it is. He knows. I'm sure he's weighed the pros and cons, and will continue to do so with his family and agent and whoever else that plays a role. He knows what he's getting in terms of revenue if he comes back to Arizona. Again, I still hate talking about this stuff, but it's just a reality, so we got to roll with it. He knows what he's going to get if he comes back, which sounds pretty substantial. He doesn't know what's going to happen if he goes to the NBA. He'll probably do well, but I've seen his mock drafts as high as number 9 overall for him. I've seen him in anywhere from there to like the 20s, but pretty much unanimous first round pick. So it's a tough. I think it's a legitimately tough decision for him. The nice thing about NIL, the positive thing, is he'd probably already be gone if it wasn't for that. So you have to take the good with the bad there. But no, I think they're filling out the roster pretty well. I think this season, even if Carter comes back, this season more so than previous years under Tommy Lloyd, they're going to have to really depend on the freshmen contributing right away. The freshmen being as good as advertised. Koa Pete and Braden Berries, Dwayne Aristoti, maybe Bryce James gets on the court. We'll have to see with Bryce. That's probably not going to happen, at least in this first year. But they're going to be a little bit more dependent on that than they are as far as transfers, international guys, because this is really the first big high school, like Sean Miller-esque high school recruiting class that Tommy Lloyd has brought in. And it could work out great, and it could be a good combination of young guys and guys who have played 3 or 4 years in college. Having essentially, I feel like also, bringing like Mo Krivas is kind of like an addition to the roster because he didn't play much last year. So I'm not unsettled about it. I'm anxious as anyone else is to see what Carter Bryant does. And it is tough because while he's making his decision, a lot of guys are going to come and go in the transfer portal who you might have been able to get, but it's the way it is. And I think Tommy will do a good job filling out the roster best he can if Carter does decide to go pro.
This is I'm going to rip myself for this one. It's a stupid topic for me. It's
I'll
a
defend
clear
you. I don't
sell.
think it's dumb.
I think Arizona's doing a fine job. I think keeping Jaden Bradley. I think keeping Krivas
Yeah.
and Tobe Awaka has been great. And you add 2 consensus top 11 recruits in Burries and Pete, and Carter Bryant's on the fence. I would say, a legitimate 50-50, maybe a little bit better chance that he returns right now because you haven't heard anything yet. He hasn't even declared fully for the draft yet. I think this Arizona team is looking to be really good. Tommy Lloyd has a plan. I don't need him to bring in anything else just yet. I think the key is you wait and see what Carter does, and you wait and see which players come back to school but want to transfer that are, they're already in the portal, but they are, testing out the NBA waters. When they decide to come back, watch Tommy jump on one of those or 1 or 2 of those, depending on what happens with Carter. So I'm very pleased with what I see from Arizona right now. Very excited for basketball season. I would say right now, and we'll probably rehash this a bunch between now and November, but this will be probably the most excited for Arizona basketball that I have been in a long time going into the season. I'll say that.
And that's fair. I think there's a lot of I think the word is potential. I mean, when you lose Caleb Love, you lose your best player, regardless of what year it is, regardless of the position he plays, that it's I think it's a bit, it could be a bit of an oversight to just assume that you're going to be able to replace him effectively. On paper, Arizona should be able to do that just fine, but you never know if guys like Braden Berries or Koa Pete are going to be, all Big 12 or Big 12 Player of the Year contenders right away. They could be. They certainly, based on what we've seen of them in high school and what coaches have said about them, they certainly could be. But they're just less of a known quantity than obviously Jaden Bradley coming back, and even Mo Krivas coming back, or Tobe Awaka. So it's more of a wait and see with those guys. Are they going to adapt to the college game right away, or is it going to take them a year? Well, and likely they won't be here more than 1 year.
Freshmen adapt. You have a good mix on this team.
Yeah, I agree.
Freshmen. Yeah, I mean, that's what Duke was missing. I feel like in the Final Four is you had mostly freshmen. You had Proctor, who is a little bit of a veteran, but you're going to have a senior point guard in Jaden Bradley.
Yeah,
you're going to have guys that have been on campus and played in tournament games in Awaka and Mo Krivas. If Carter Bryant comes back, obviously it's a sophomore. But whoever Tommy brings in at that small forward position probably is going to have collegiate experience to play around Burries and Koa Pete. I think if you had told me in January that Arizona would have made the Sweet 16, played a great game against Duke, and fallen short, but landed Burries and Koa Pete, I would have said, first of all, you're nuts. And secondly, I'll take that realistically, 100%.
Yeah, and I think we could dismiss the idea that you brought up a couple months ago of whether Tommy Lloyd has an issue recruiting high school guys, because he clearly doesn't.
That's out the window now.
He has multiple ways to structure the roster. You have multiple avenues you can go, and you don't have to rely on one every year. You could, like the high school guys, you could go the international route, you could go transfer portal, or you could do a combination thereof. This class just happens to be heavier on the high school commits. And if they hadn't landed Pete and or Burries, then I think Tommy, knowing what we know of him now, would have done a fine job in the transfer portal. So I don't think recruiting is and reloading in any given season is an issue for Tommy Lloyd. I think we can say that at this point.
I want to ask you just kind of off the cuff, Becky Burke really doing a job rebuilding this roster of Arizona women's basketball. I thought this was going to be a non-starter, like a team that was not worth talking about. Now, I know it's an all-transfer roster, but listen, Baylor has to do the same thing in men's basketball, and you'll see what happens there. But I mean, she's making it where this team is going to be seemingly watchable and interesting in year one.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a tournament team in year one, although you never know. But she's brought in a lot of top talent from mid majors, like a lot of it, impressively so. So we'll have to see how that translates into Big 12 play. But yeah, she hasn't had a problem bringing in some of the top transfers. I mean, maybe not like the top, but like that next level, that next crop of players who have a lot of upside. So, and in multiple positions. So, yeah, I think that, Adia Barnes, the criticism of her, beyond the off court stuff was just like, consistently performing on the offensive side of the ball. And Aaron McDonald kind of covered that up for a little while at Arizona. I think this team will be Becky Burke's teams eventually will be better on the offensive side of the ball. Overall, we'll have to see. But she's done an outstanding job of filling up the roster quickly. She apparently doesn't rest, like she said. I know it's going to be tough getting her on this show, but we'll do our best to do it. But yeah, I think the women's basketball program, it's nice that they have some built-in support as well from fans. I hope that a lot of the fans who have bought season tickets over the last couple of years will continue to go because they have a level of fan support we didn't see 20 years ago when Joan Bonvicini was coaching and they were an NCAA tournament team more often than not then. So there's a lot more support there, and there's some built-in excitement that I think that Adia deserves a lot of credit for. And Becky's hit the ground running. I think she's done a great job so far.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what she's done. Very, very pleased with Becky Burke, and my expectations from a few weeks ago have been exceeded already. So we'll see how it plays out. So calling all Wildcat fans, did you know that Harrah's Auction Casino is your local home for Caesars Rewards? Every play unlocks perks at more than 50 destinations nationwide. Enjoy free dining in Atlantic City, hotel stays in New Orleans, and exclusive rewards from coast to coast. Sign up today, earn reward credits, and experience nationwide play only at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsors of Caesars Rewards in Arizona. Coming up next, Victor Yates joins us here on Wildcat Country. Shane, it may be late April, but we are bringing back one of the most entertaining guests that we have had on Wildcat Country in 2025. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to have him on a bunch more throughout the rest of the year. It is our friend Victor Yates, who is a special teams and defensive player in the Mike Stoops era.
Yes,
just a great follow. You're a great follow on X or Twitter because you tell it like it is. You're just not afraid to speak up. So I'm going to start with this one. Tonight we saw Tetairoa McMillan go 8th to Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Seeing a guy go in the top 10, what does that mean for Arizona's program nationally, in your opinion?
And listen, I think that is pivotal for the growth of the program, especially for not just TMAC in general, but the brand of Arizona football. That means that you instantly become a household name in terms of notoriety, right? So those first 10 picks, that's what people are looking at across the country. And that's University of Arizona, which I think is phenomenal for the program. And it's also leading the way for, I think, more guys to be able to want to come here and them to be able to sell the vision of, hey, that's not going to be our last top 10 draft pick.
Yeah, and hopefully not. And, as far as I'm concerned, Victor, McMillan was the first wide receiver to go off the board. And if you wanted to argue about it, I'll show you that picture of him posterizing the other guy in Colorado 2 years ago. So since we talked a lot of changes since we last had John Victor, and we've got so much great feedback the first time we had John. We love the conversation. So appreciate you joining us again.
Yes.
Get kind of give me an overview of how you think Arizona's offseason has gone so far. A couple guys have entered the portal since last weekend. A couple big coaching changes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they are hunkering down on the culture that they want, right? So you obviously you get guys with the transfer portal. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and I say that for both ends, for the coaches and for the players. And that's something that's just the day and age that we're in for football. But in terms of getting the right coaches on board and with the hires that they made, I feel really comfortable with the additions that they've done. And if there's one thing I've learned from the head coach this past year is that he is methodical in his process of evaluations. And with the way that he went about his coaching staff this past year, and then what he did in this offseason, I think that they are putting themselves in the position to be contenders, which will be really interesting come the fall. And so for spring ball, I always tell people spring ball is for it's a chance for the coaches to see who they've got in their foxhole, right? And it also gives them in my opinion, a warning or a evaluation of guys that are either doing really well or guys that they go, hey, we need to find another guy. And so a lot of times with these spring balls, now you're seeing nationally, they're not even doing the actual scrimmages anymore, right? Because one, they don't want to give away the film for guys, but two, they don't want guys getting injured, and so trying to protect their players for the long haul. So I think that this spring ball is really for culture building for what BB wants with the program and with the coaches that they've got on board. It'll be exciting to see what these guys do come August.
What do you think about where the fan level of fan support is at this point, Victor? Because I think a year ago, a lot of us were feeling very good, even though Jed had left. Brent came in and was able to keep so many top guys, including T-Mac, but then the season unfolded the way it did. Maybe compare how the fan vibes are right now to you were part of the Mike Stoops era and part of that rebuilding process. How does it compare in your opinion?
Yeah, so great question. I would say I feel like right now the pulse on the fans of Arizona is, and this is from me attending games last year, multiple games last season, to hearing people say what they've said is that the fans of Tucson, in my opinion, in Southern Arizona are a show me fan base. So right now, what we showed them last year was not nothing pleasant, and so now, in order to gain their trust and support back, and I'm talking about from a collective base, right? Like they're still, I don't ever want to get it twisted. They're still the diehards. And there was plenty of those that I talked to last year too that said, hey, doesn't matter what our record is, I'll be here buying season tickets because it's about the young men. So I want to throw that disclaimer out there. But for the whole, that's not how the stadium stays full or gets full, right? And so I would say right now there's a hesitancy out there because people have seen the product that was put on the field last year and weren't too excited about that in terms of where they thought we would be at, which is fair, which is something I had caution about because I said it early, was, hey, when you're changing coaches, unless you're keeping the same exact scheme, which rarely ever happens, you're going to be in for some some growing pains. And I think that's what we experienced last season. But with the coaches that they've got now, I think there'll be some reasons certainly for the fan base to cheer, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
All right, and I brought this up too many times on the show. Shane's going to be like, we've talked about this a million times. We haven't had Victor on since. I've decided after 20 years to give up my season tickets. And albeit, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go to games. I'm still going to try to go to three or more games this season. But do you blame fans like me for saying, yeah, I've seen the product. I don't see it being significantly better. It's not worth the long drive from the Phoenix area. These late start times, I'll just go to the games that are more convenient. Can you argue with that philosophy and say, I'm making the wrong move, or do you get it?
I could argue with that philosophy, but I also understand it in terms of the overall experience, right? Like, so one of the things that I've been fortunate to engage with is a lot of fans over the last few years. And one of the things I understand from fans who have not played the game is like, hey, this really wears on me. And I think that that's something that gets missed when people are talking about fans. Like, I think the notion is like, yeah, you're just a fan of the team and move on. Like, no, this is someone's weekend, and not just their weekend, but also their finances. not only their finances, it's the scheduling of their weekend and saying no to other things that they could have done only to go somewhere and you know it doesn't matter if you lose by one or if you lose by 50, and sometimes it does for the fan experience, but you get where I'm going with this. When those losses start to compile over time, you go, hey, I'm not insane. I want to see you make a change before I'm willing to make that investment. So to your point of coming down from Phoenix and supporting for 20 years, I mean, I guess I'm like, I actually don't fault you on that, because that goes back to my original statement of looking at the fan base and going, hey, we really do have a show me fan base. So it's like, hey, until you show me that there's some changes, I'm not going to start blocking out my schedule and uh, cementing my finances for things of Arizona football until you guys show me that it's actually a good investment for me. And I think the other thing that's rubbed fans the wrong way too is, let's just call it what it is, the NIL, right? Like
Yeah.
when people are seeing these kids get paid, and just from 10 years ago where they were not getting paid like this, there's something to be said about like, hey, if you're not producing, then I'm not giving you anything. Like it has become more transactional than ever for even the fan base, and I think that's just the nature of the beast. So I said I could make the argument, but if I'm being a realist, I would say I would not argue that, and I would say I hope that they give us something for the fan base to all collectively want to be in Arizona Stadium.
Real quick, Victor, I know Eric's got another one for you, but I just got to ask as a follow up. Just watching these guys in at least some of the guys making so much money now, does it kind of hurt as a former student athlete knowing, like you were born in the wrong era? Like, what do you think when you hear guys making 6-7 figures playing college football?
Listen here, listen here. I am 100% agreeing with you. I think that it is. If there's something like I have few things that I look back on like, dang, I missed out. This is one of those unique things of missing out. Now, obviously, I don't control when I was born or all of that, like the time frames, but looking at what these guys are making now, well, all it's done is it's moved the finish line, right? Like for so long and for so many young men, the whole move of football was, hey, I want to make it to the NFL. You wanted to make it to the NFL because you knew if you made it to the NFL, the air quotes of the money there means that you were taken care of for life, right? Was like just the easy assumption from a young boy. Now it's like, dude, I want to make it to college and I want to be a quarterback, because if I'm a quarterback at the collegiate level of a Power Four school, they're going to pay me at least $1 million a year. And I don't even have to, I mean, Archie Manny's a bad example, but I don't even have to start or play. And that's what it's going to cost.
Quinn Ewers got $1 million from Ohio State, never played a snap. Yeah.
Not going to play a snap, right?
Nope.
And with not playing a snap means that you haven't hurt your brand and you're pocketing the money, right? Like, and for less work. And we're not talking about the NFL. We're talking about in college where it's like, hey, I'm going to whatever I want. Like, so I just had to say, to your point of asking the question, I'm like, certainly I am so saddened. And as a guy who's a walk-on to a scholarship, but winning a state championship in Tucson, I'm like, certainly I could think of a few businesses that I would have had my face on talking about bear down, go Cats, and give me a little bag on the side for my efforts.
With your personality? Oh
Yes.
my gosh. You'd be, I mean, you're an endorser's dream.
But you know what, Victor? I think that's what NIL was like. The spirit of NIL is intended for. It's like to be able to make money on an endorsements, or like to start your own like clothing brand, or like Sam Thomas did with the women's basketball team. Not like wink, into directly, but not directly paying players.
Correct. Yeah. And to your point, it's funny because you see some of that right with the NIL, where you see these bad actors who are getting FaceTime on a commercial or whatever, and you're like, man, that's what you wanted to spend your money on? Like, you think that their name, because to your point, I'm like, hey, the only thing I would be doing if I'm a business is looking for the people with personality. Personality is going to sell more than anything else, right? And so to your point about that with NIL, yeah, it should be centered around what these kids, their personalities are meshing with the organization to uplift the brand of the org. So, yeah.
I'll tell you this. So I spoke to one of your defensive teammates, so I'll tell you off the air, who was, and I asked him, if you had played during the era of NIL, he said, 100% chance I would have transferred.
Listen.
I know he was unhappy with Mike Stoops, playing for Mike Stoops.
Yep.
And if the rules were looser back then with money on the table, he said, I was 100% out. Of your teammates, when Arizona, I mean, you guys got in the top 10, I think either your
Yep.
junior or senior year.
Yep.
What did you feel like if the rules were the same as today, that team would have been would have seen mass transfers in hindsight, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not gonna put no names out there, but I would tell you 1,000% we would have had transfers. Because you just think about it, right? Like, hey, you just had a great season. You're top 10, so you've shown your brand, and someone from a school who's either playing in the championship or contending on one of those New Year's Six says, "Hey, we want your services, and we're going to pay you more." Like, it's like brand elevation. I feel like that's why you see those guys in basketball transfer from these small schools, and they're like, "Hey, I led the Northwestern East conference in assists last year at 16." And they're like, "Hey, we're bringing this dude over to Arizona because he's going to be like an assist king. Of course, he's not going to have 16, but he might have 12, right? He might have 9." And so, to your point about the transfer, and that's something that I'm in a group chat with a couple of guys. That it's funny you said because I could think of the guy that you're probably talking about. Because he literally said that. He said, "Hey, man, if this was around with us," he said, "I would have transferred." And to me, I think that's the beauty of me not being in today's day and age, because I'm like, there's no way I would be saying bear down because as a walk on, I'm looking for the first opportunity for somewhere else to someone give me some money, right? And then I'm going there. And then if I have any other opportunities, it's like it's a trickling effect. And that's the thing, to be honest, I feel scary for these kids because I'm like, dude, these kids who have four transfers or 3 transfers, I'm like, when you are looking back on your college career and you talk about guys in a foxhole, I'm like, the reality is a lot of these guys aren't going to have those long lasting bonds that I have now with guys that has been, let's see, 16 years or 14 years since I played. I'm still in a group chat with these dudes that we're texting on the weekly basis, talking about T-Mac today, right? Or talking about what Arizona football is doing or basketball or like, and so I said, say that's built through the brotherhood of not just the season, but seasons. And so, yeah, that's going to be something that'll be an interesting case study down the road is like those transfers and what that does for the brand of schools with student athletes.
Let me get your opinion on this, Victor, because I feel like Jed Fish is like his best advantage as head coach, especially at a school like Arizona, where you probably aren't going to get quite as much NIL money for football as a lot of other power schools are, is he could say, look, you come to play at Arizona, maybe we can't pay you as much in NIL, but we've got a litany of coaches who know what it takes to get to the NFL, get to the next level. We have a bunch of guys who are going to come in and speak and talk to you about what it means to be a pro. So if you come here, you might make a little less now, but you're going to make more later. I think Brent Brennan isn't able to sell that argument quite as well. He's a great relationships guy. He's brought in some great coaches, I think, with Seth Dickey and Joe Salavea, but he doesn't have those endless connections like Jed does. And I think that, to me, especially the NIL era, is the biggest drop off. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, listen, when you say that, you're 100% right. And I think to what you just said is a point of an area for opportunity for BB. And specifically, it's something that I would believe that he's probably trying to grow his tentacles in that, right? Is realizing of like, hey, man, with these kids, and I think to your point about Jed, but I think even one step further of like Dion, I think Dion's like the perfect model of, hey, we're going to put you around some superstars of the sport, and whether it be from coaches or whether it be from celebrity figures, like we're gonna have these people in and around, and those are gonna be like part of the draw of not just our coaches, but like this atmosphere that we're creating. And when I think about to Dion and what Jed did, I'm like, you're 100% right. Like having Coach Taylor from the Bengals coming through, had what's his name with the Rams. Like I'm like, and then obviously Belichick. I'm like, dude, you have the greats of the current day sport, and we're not talking about they're like, you know, 20 years past their prime of, hey man, we're bringing in Dan Marino to talk to the team, and that's no shot at Dan, but it's like, no, these dudes are currently the face of the sport and what they're and highly respected. And so when you're able to do that, I think it's a easier sell, not just to the student athletes, but their parents as well, right? Because that shows a vote of confidence of that you're competent at a high level with your what you're doing. And for BB, I think that that's an area of growth for him. I think that I know with when I was coaching high school football, with some of the coaches recruiting some of the guys that I was working with, those dudes they are doing it at a high level of relationship development, which is really good to hear from the student athletes. Of like, hey, Arizona's doing this, Arizona's doing that. And I'm like, oh, well, which coach is that in there? Tell me, and I go, okay, that's about what I expected. But hearing that Arizona's beating out these other schools because these coaches are following up, so I think that that is something that Brent is going to be meticulous about in terms of follow up and engagement with the and the recruiting pipeline. But I think that to your point, that was something that I would like to see grow, and I would like to see them try to leverage their alumni network, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, there is a multitude of people. Like to what you're saying, like I heard feedback about seeing Wheaton talking to the guys, right? And a lot of guys are like, "Why is he talking to the team?" And so one of the guys had to alert our alumni of, "Well, that's because he coached him. That's why he's talking to the team, right?" Like, yeah, we know he didn't go to Arizona, but he coached him. And I'm like, um, I'm looking at some guys like we talked about earlier, Lance Briggs, Rob Gronkowski, Teddy Bruschi, Nick Foles,
And Jed was very
Earl,
good at that, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Earl Mitchell,
Yeah.
Trevin Wade, Rob Golden. Um, I'm thinking of other guys that have been super successful outside of the sport. Thinking of like a Daryl Brooks or a Anthony Wingate or a Brad Poston or a Orlando Vargas. Like I'm thinking of these guys that are, yes, these guys that the later guys that I listed did not make it in the NFL, but they are super successful in what they're doing in the business world, right?
Mm.
And those are where you want to let guys know, like, hey, you spend the time here at Arizona, but this is the brotherhood forever, and here's what these guys are doing now in the realm of the business world. I mean, even a guy that's not this guy isn't in football, but he's basketball. But a guy like David Baga, he's got his own
Oh yeah.
like medical recruit. He does medical sales, like recruiting, right? And he's like number one in recruiting for that. Like, and like I'm like, but he's an Arizona guy, right?
Yep.
And so I just think of that man and go, man, there's ways to use that. Or now that you got me on the point, I think Gilbert Arenas, Arizona has not done the best job of engaging him. Send Gilbert Arenas a little bit of money. He's a common name right here, right now, and have him come talk to the team, right? Like those are the type of things where, especially with these younger guys, these people that are active on social media and the social media platforms, they are like the modern day, like uh, pop figures. They are the new celebrities, right? Like Gilbert Arenas, minus YouTube and Instagram and stuff, he's really not that well known in my opinion. And this isn't a shot at Gilbert Arenas, but in the further because his gap from when he played to right now, right? But if
Yeah.
you watch what he's doing right now in terms of his analysis and his talk show and whatever, he's top of mind. He's up there with the greats of them. And I say that because hey, he's an Arizona guy,
Yep.
right? So like to your point, if you can't get football, you gotta work your you got to work the networks to try to get these guys in here where you can grab their attention. So that's
Yeah.
a long monologue to say, yes, I do believe that is an area of growth, but I also like what I'm seeing from the current coaches of their commitment to hustling to get these recruits in. And so hopefully they can continue to expand upon that and get some notable figures in front of the brand that'll be willing to talk to these guys.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned David Baga because I was actually at the senior day game where he had it was a meaningless three, but it was a huge three at the end of the game, and my oldest nephew was with me, and he had the biggest smile on my face when he saw that. So yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
big David Baga fan.
Yeah. Listen, I used to play with David Bagga in the rec.
Yeah,
And I'm telling you right now, basketball is so funny because you can see a guy like Bagga and go, huh, the walk on, huh, he's not playing, huh. And then you get with him in the rec, and literally this dude was like Steph Curry.
oh yeah,
Cross half court to throw it up, like quick release that you can do. And I'm like, it's so funny the levels that there is in the sport and you don't realize it because you're sitting here watching it from the stands, and go, man, I could play with David Baggett. And then you go out there and you go, never mind, never mind.
Well, being a walk on at Arizona is better than like starter at a lot of
Yes,
a lot of D1 schools.
100%. Yep.
My last question for you, Victor, I wanted to ask you about Noah Fafita because obviously he had, like most of the team, he struggled a bit last year compared to the year before. Certainly the offensive line had something to do with that, but he's got another offensive coordinator to play for in Seth Diggy. Tetairoa McMillan, who he's played with since 8th grade, is gone. What's your forecast for him this season? Do you think he can have a bounce back year, and do you think Seth Diggy's a good fit for him?
I think Seth Diggy is a great fit for him based on the interactions that they've had with one another and what they believe in. And it's funny that I think they had a connection from a few years back, which is also pretty cool. I think honestly, if I'm being blunt, I think that Noah coming back is amazing for the program. And I know some people are like, dude, listen, when you've played with somebody for so long like T-Mac, it can hurt you as a quarterback. And I say that with the most love, not because T-Mac's a first round talent. It's because you're looking for T-Mac while some other guys are open, right? And they might have this dude, which happened a lot of times, doubled or triple covered. And you're looking there like, should I throw it up? And sometimes you throw it up, and guess what? Because he's a first round talent, he still comes down with it, right? But other times it's like it's messing up your evaluation as a quarterback. And so I think with Noah not having T-Mac around and Noah being the competitor that I know he is, I am super excited to see this dude this coming year because he knows it's do or die time. Like, hey, it's honestly, it's a lot like Jaden Daniels. And I say that because when Jaden left ASU, there was all this naysay like, oh, he can't throw. There was all this riffraff about him, right? And people were begging on, and it wasn't until his last season he reemerged as, hey, I'm that guy. And I think for Noah, this is a great example of that. Of like, hey, people aren't looking for you to be that guy, but you can be that guy by producing week in and week out. Like you play in one of the crazy most competitive conferences in the country, and I say that because you've seen it from last year of those 4 teams finishing at 7-3. If I'm not mistaken, was it 3 or 4?
We had both Iowa State and ASU finish 7-2 in the conference. You're talking about just yeah, and a couple. BYU was right behind them.
So BYU, but it was BYU and Colorado.
Yeah,
because it was a 4-way tie. That's right. What I mean. So
that's right.
I'm saying with that, right? You go just looking at that in the conference and going 14 to 7-2 is crazy. Like we probably won't see that happen again. But I'm saying that to say that is a great way for your own brand. Like who's going to be the quarterback in this conference to lead it forward? And I think Noah's prime with Seth to make a move, and they both know like, hey, this is a big moment. Like there is a lot of film study going on, and I think that they're going to put the pieces in the right spot. So, man, I'm excited for Noah nonetheless because I know and I believe that this dude can turn the ship. I think he can turn the ship for reals.
All right, so then my last question for you, Victor. What's a successful season for Arizona in 2025?
Listen, man, they're going to hate me for this one, man. A successful season in 2025 is that you found a way to go from what I would call as the ashes of the conference to a 6-6.
100% agree.
And listen,
100%.
When I say 6-6, I'm like, dude, you're not gonna. The reality is in football, they say, hey, man, you want to win all your home games and win half on the road, and that's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, this recipe is like, dude, you need to try to find a way to go 500 in both. If you can do 500 in both, that's amazing, right? Like, and I say that of not being locked in the schedule, but just knowing how these things work out. I'm like, certain games you look at, and I'll say, for instance, Kansas State. You look at Kansas State and you go, you can't predict how that was going to happen as that happened going into it. But you look at that and you go, okay, man, like we got to. And then you get there and you're like, well, damn, this is a wildfire. Like, what's going on here? Oh, man. And so I say that to say because it's so far out, I'm like, man, there's some games on schedule right now that we're going to go, damn, we wish they had that back. But I'm like, dude, if you can get to those 6 wins, that is super successful. And any more than that is a plus, man. Like I said, it's a crazy conference. And obviously, with the changing of the guard with the territorial cup game, that's going to be interesting as well. And that's always a toss up, right? And so, and that game being in Phoenix will help, I believe, the Wildcats out a lot, because I've always said, especially as a student athlete, that game I never loved, or I always had the most passion playing that game was not in front of my own fans, was these other fans, because there's nothing like beating your opponent in their house where you get to watch their fans mope out of the stadium. Like, that is unprecedented. Like,
you're right.
Yeah, it's fun. Listen, don't get me wrong, it's fun being in Tucson and cheering with the fans and that, but I'm like, there is something sweet about making eye contact with the opposing fans and saying, "Get home safe, buddy." Like,
we saw that a couple years ago. I mean, when Arizona put up 59 on ASU, there's no better feeling than walking out of Sun Devil Stadium. Yeah. I mean, right?
UVA fans took over the ASU student section. I mean, we don't have. I don't remember what happened last year. We just
we blocked that. We blocked that out. Yeah. Victor, always great to chat with you. We love your passion. We'll definitely have you on before the season, and look forward to having you on to break things down during the season.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, fellas. Appreciate y'all having me, man. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Always enjoy the chats with Victor. He is passionate, and you and I can both appreciate his level of passion for the program, and look forward to having him on many more times.
Absolutely. Yeah. I liked how he kind of he threw his hat when I mentioned that his missing the boat on NIL. I genuinely do feel bad. As ridiculous as the college football and basketball landscape is now, I genuinely do feel bad for student athletes who missed that opportunity. If nothing else, the opportunity to get endorsements or make money off their own products, clothing lines, whatever. But yeah, Victor's great. I would love to have him and Barrett on for a roundtable chat before football season starts, because they're both knowledgeable, they're both passionate about the program, and I think it would be a lot of fun. And we talked about this a bunch of times, Eric. The most fun we have is when we're just kind of shooting the breeze.
Yep. Ripping it.
And it's not so much a Q&A format. We're just bringing up different topics, and we're, the guys, former players are remembering what it was like to be on the field, and we're telling them what it was like to watch them from the stands. And that's the most fun I have doing this show. And I think you feel the same way.
We are on to absolutely. I do. We are on to segment 3, which means it is time for Shane's standouts. What do you got for us?
Well, let's start with the men's tennis team, which won they followed up by the final Pac-12 tournament title, winning that, or at least under the previous format. They won the last Pac-12 tournament title last year, and they followed it up by winning the Big 12 tournament title on their first attempt.
Fantastic.
They beat UCF for the championship last weekend. Colton Smith and Jay Friend, who are two familiar names on the show, along with Alexander Rosen and Casper Christensen, were all named to the All Big 12 tournament team. We're still a few days away from the selection show for nationals, but there's a good chance Arizona will probably get a top 10 overall seed. But congrats to Coach Clancy Shields, who's been on this program a couple of times, and the men's tennis team on its continued success. And they've made, I think, the Sweet 16 the last couple of years. Hopefully they'll break through and get even further. But the men's tennis team has become, I know that it's not football, it's not men's basketball, but they have become legitimately one of the best, if not the best program over maybe the last 3 years at Arizona. So awesome to see, and I enjoy giving them the props that they deserve. For baseball, Brendan Summerhill, he's finally healthy. He returned to the baseball team, and he hit the first pitch he saw against UT Arlington on Wednesday out of the park. Arizona won that game 9-3. He missed exactly a month of action due to injury, but he's back. Huge deal for Arizona. He's hitting .417 this season. Arizona kept finding ways to win series without him. They grinded out a 3-game series win at BYU last weekend. Before that, they won 2 of 3 against Oklahoma State. But having him back for the home stretch is going to be massive. Arizona is 12-6 in the Big 12, which is tied with Kansas and TCU for second in the conference. West Virginia is first at 13-3, and Arizona handed West Virginia 2 of their 3 conference losses. So having Summerhill back, big deal for Arizona's Big 12 title hopes, as well as their hopes to earn a top 16 seed and be a host school in the national tournament. They're probably teetering right on that cusp now, like they have for the last several weeks. So that's a big deal. Big congrats to Devin Netz, who received one of just 12 golden tickets for college players from the Athletes Unlimited Softball League for the 2025 draft. She's probably as close to Shohei Ohtani as you'll see in softball this season. She's the only Wildcat to ever throw a perfect game and hit a home run in the same game. She's a big reason why Arizona is ranked number 13 nationally. The AUSL draft, if you want to check it out, will be on ESPNU on Saturday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. if you want to see where Devin's going to go. So big congrats for Devin. She missed all of last year due to injury, and she's come back, and she's done a heck of a job for the softball team. So very well deserved. And then the last thing I want to mention Steve Robinson, who was U of A's men's basketball assistant coach, former Wildcat Country guest. He announced his retirement on Thursday. He was a part of 3 national championship teams. He coached or recruited over 60 NBA players. Just an overall fantastic human being by all accounts, and was very generous with his time with us. Definitely set the table for Tommy Lloyd when he came to Arizona and the success he's already had in Tucson. So congrats to Steve on a fantastic career that spanned over 40 years, and enjoy your well-deserved retirement.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Steve Robinson. He did a good job serving under Tommy Lloyd, but I'm very curious to see what Tommy does next. Probably within the next week or so, we should have a hire, and I would expect it to be a decent name hire there. I would expect it to be a name as one of the lead assistant coaches for Arizona basketball team. That's going to be really good. Question I wanted to bring up for you, of the spring teams, baseball, softball, tennis, golf, which do you think has the highest ceiling and I trust you because you really dig into all of these as compared to me, who sees kind of more of a high level view.
Well, you might be giving me a little too much credit, but I think the 3 contenders would be the ones you mentioned: baseball, softball, and men's tennis, all ranked in the top 20. I feel like it's 2 different questions, because I think of those 3 teams, men's tennis is probably the best, but in terms of who has the highest ceiling, I think between men's tennis, softball, and baseball, the least predictable of the 3 in the national tournament is baseball, where you can get on a roll. You don't even have to be a top 16 seed. You can get on a roll. We've seen it before, and win the whole thing, or at least get to the College World Series. I think for softball, again, I've said it so many times, people are sick of it. But I feel like softball, they have some great hitting, but I think it comes down to pitching in the postseason. And I think Arizona has some very good pitchers with Devin Netz and Miranda Stoddard, but not quite in that elite top category. And I think that's going to limit I think they could get into the College World Series, but I don't necessarily think they're contenders for a national championship. Men's tennis, they've been very consistent being top 10, top 15, got into the Sweet 16 each of the last 2 years, I believe. And they could do that again, and maybe they'll advance further. But I feel like, again, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, chalk when it comes to that tournament. Just in the limited time I followed it, baseball seems to be the most wide open, and I think Arizona's they stayed in the top 25. They keep winning series even without Brendan Summerhill, and they've got him back, health permitting. There's no reason why they can't make a big run. I think I think it's a team that on any given day they could beat anyone. Now they could also lose. I mean, they easily could have lost 2 or 3 at BYU, which is not good, not a good team. But I think I'm not trying to hedge. I feel like if you're going from like the most to least talented, I'd probably go men's tennis, softball, baseball. But in terms of, you asked about ceiling, I think baseball has the highest ceiling. In other words, I think if I had to pick one, if any of these if I had to go, do one of your on the spot bold predictions, as far as who has the best chance to win the national championship, I don't think any of them would, but I think the best ball team would have the best chance for the reasons I mentioned, if that makes sense.
I actually very bullish on men's tennis. I mean, when you have a guy like Colton Smith,
Oh yeah,
who is beating pros on a fairly regular basis, it kind of ups your game to another level. And I'm not saying Arizona's going to win it all, but I have a hard time seeing Clancy Shields here for the long term. He's done such a good job. You would think a bigger tennis school is going to wrestle him away. And that's nothing against Clancy. I mean, he's doing a phenomenal job. When you think about how good Arizona men's tennis has gotten from a school that really wasn't, expected.
no,
I think softball is going to surprise us. I think softball is going to make a run. I would not be the least bit surprised if they got to Oklahoma City. If Devin Nets can carry them, I think they could. They have. This is Caitlin Lowe's best team as far as I see it.
Oh, I agree.
Maybe
I
I'm
agree.
wrong. So.
Well, no, and I agree with that assessment 100%. There's no reason that both of those teams can't make a big run. I'm just thinking, I feel like it's kind of like the NBA playoffs versus the Stanley Cup playoffs. Stanley Cup playoffs, I figure, are much wider open, and like even if you're the worst seed in the conference, you could go on and get to the finals. NBA, sometimes that could happen, but it's a lot rarer. Usually, the teams that are the best in the regular season stay the best. So I feel like baseball, it's you're more likely to see a non-seeded, non-top 16 team make it to the finals, that final 8 in this case, than you are for the other schools.
I have to see Chip Hale win regionals.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get out of the region.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that. I mean, we haven't seen, even with a team that won the Pac-12 a couple years in a row, didn't see much. And I think that's where I question it.
Well, and I put it this way, this is my last thought.
Last year they did, but
yeah, I got you. But I think of the three schools we're talking about, the team I think is most likely to win a national championship is the baseball team. The team I think is most likely to bow out early in nationals is the baseball team.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Okay, that's fair. All right, I'll give you that. Thanks to Victor Yates for joining us. Great to catch up with him. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks as always for listening. And as I always like to say, bear down.